Sometimes I don't say enough, not because I don't feel it, not because I don't care, not because my heart is empty, but because my emotions are deeper than my words. There are moments in life when silence is misunderstood. People assume that if you don't speak loudly, you don't feel strongly. They think that if you're not constantly expressing yourself, your heart must be distant. But the truth is, some of the deepest souls are the quietest. Some of the strongest emotions lie beneath calm surfaces. And sometimes not saying enough is not weakness, it is depth. We live in a world that rewards noise. The loudest voice often gets the most attention. The most dramatic reaction is mistaken for the strongest passion. But there is a different kind of strength, the strength of emotional discipline, the strength of reflection, the strength of choosing your words carefully because you understand their weight. When you don't say everything you feel, it doesn't mean you are numb. It means you are processing. It means you value clarity over chaos. It means you refuse to let temporary emotion dictate permanent words. Sometimes you don't say enough because you have been misunderstood before. You opened your heart once, and it was dismissed. You expressed your feelings once, and they were minimized, so now you measure your vulnerability carefully. You protect your heart not because it lacks love, but because it carries too much of it. That kind of restraint is not coldness. It is wisdom built from experience. So there are people who speak quickly and regret later, and there are people who stay silent, reflect deeply, and respond with intention. You belong to the second group. You feel everything, the joy, the disappointment, the gratitude, the hurt, but you choose to filter it through maturity. You understand that not every feeling needs immediate expression. Not every reaction deserves a response. Silence in your case is not emptiness, it is control. But here is the challenge: sometimes your silence becomes a burden. You carry words inside you that were never released, appreciation that was never expressed, apologies that were never spoken, love that was never verbalized, and over time, unsaid words can create distance. Not because you didn't feel deeply, but because others couldn't see it. So the balance you must learn is this: keep your depth, but don't let your silence hide your heart. You must understand something powerful: your voice matters. Just because you are naturally reserved does not mean your emotions should remain invisible. Growth does not require you to become loud. It requires you to become brave. Brave enough to say, I care. Brave enough to say, that hurt. Brave enough to say, I appreciate you. Your silence has strength, but your words have power. When used intentionally, they build bridges instead of walls. Sometimes you don't say enough because you believe people should just know. You assume your actions speak clearly, and often they do. But not everyone reads actions the same way. Communication is not about proving your depth, it's about allowing others to experience it. When you speak, you give clarity. When you express, you remove confusion. And when you open up, you strengthen connection. There is also strength in emotional containment. Not everything you feel deserves public display. Some emotions are sacred, some experiences are personal. Protecting your inner world is healthy, but suppression is different from protection. Suppression suffocates. Protection preserves. Learn the difference. If your silence brings peace, it is protection. If your silence creates heaviness inside you, it may be suppression. The truth is, deep feelers often struggle with expression because their emotions are complex. You don't just feel happy. You feel layers of gratitude, reflection, nostalgia. You don't just feel pain. You analyze it, understand it, internalize it. That complexity takes time to translate into words. So sometimes you choose silence rather than incomplete explanation. That is not weakness. That is depth refusing to be simplified. But remember this: the people who truly value you will not demand constant noise. They will appreciate your stillness. They will learn your language, the subtle shifts in your tone, the quiet gestures, the small acts of loyalty. You do not need to transform your personality to be understood. You need to allow yourself to grow into fuller expression without losing authenticity. Sometimes you don't say enough because you are protecting others. You hold back harsh truths. You swallow criticism. You choose peace over being right. That restraint shows emotional intelligence. But do not confuse peacekeeping with self-erasure. You deserve to be heard too. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to express without fear of being too much. Your silence has likely saved you from unnecessary conflict. It has prevented impulsive decisions. It has preserved relationships that might have been damaged by emotional reactions. But your voice has the power to strengthen those same relationships. Growth is not abandoning who you are. It is expanding who you are. It is learning when silence builds strength and when speech builds connection. There is something powerful about someone who doesn't speak often but speaks with impact. When you finally say what you feel, it carries weight. It carries intention. It carries authenticity. That is rare. That is valuable. But don't wait too long to let people see your heart. The world already has enough emotional distance. What it needs is honest depth. If you've been quiet, not because you don't feel, but because you feel too much, understand that your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is awareness. It is empathy. It is strength. Just learn to express it in ways that free you instead of trapping you. You do not have to shout to be heard. You do not have to overshare to be authentic. You only have to be intentional. Sometimes I don't say enough, not because my heart is empty, but because it is full. Full of thoughts I'm still organizing. Full of emotions I'm still understanding. Full of love I sometimes struggle to translate into words. But growth means I am learning to speak when it matters. Learning to express before distance grows. Learning to share without fear. Your silence is not absence. Your quiet is not indifference. Your restraint is not weakness. But your voice, when used with courage, can transform everything. So keep your depth. Keep your emotional intelligence. Keep your calm strength. Just don't hide your heart behind it. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more intentional voices willing to speak from depth. Let me take this even deeper. Sometimes you don't say enough not because you lack emotion, but because you have learned how heavy words can be. You understand that once something leaves your mouth, it cannot be taken back, so you analyze, you measure, you weigh your thoughts carefully. You would rather remain quiet than speak recklessly. And that shows maturity. But here is the hidden struggle. When you constantly choose silence, people may begin to assume there is nothing inside you. They may misinterpret your calm as distance, your restraint as indifference, your composure as emotional absence. And over time, that misunderstanding can create loneliness. You feel deeply, yet you feel unseen. You care deeply, yet you feel unrecognized. You love deeply, yet you struggle to express it in ways others understand. This is the paradox of the deep soul. You experience emotions intensely, but you don't always externalize them easily. You replay conversations in your mind long after they're over. You think of things you wish you had said hours later. You craft perfect sentences internally, but in the moment you hold them back. Sometimes it's fear of vulnerability. Sometimes it's fear of being misunderstood. Sometimes it's simply that your emotional world is so layered that quick words feel insufficient. But growth requires a shift, not into loudness, not into oversharing, not into becoming someone you're not, but into courage. The courage to let people see your heart before it becomes heavy from being unexpressed. The courage to say, I appreciate you, before it's too late. The courage to say, that hurt me, instead of carrying silent resentment. The courage to say, I'm proud of you, I miss you, I need help, or I care. Because unspoken emotions don't disappear, they accumulate. And when they accumulate, they can turn into emotional distance, frustration, or regret. You must learn that expressing yourself does not make you weak. It makes you clear. It makes you real. It makes you connected. Silence is powerful when it is chosen intentionally. But silence becomes dangerous when it is used to avoid vulnerability. There is strength in composure, but there is also strength in openness. Your quiet nature is not something to abandon. It is something to refine. Let your words be few, but let them be meaningful. Let your voice remain calm, but let it be present. The world doesn't need you to be louder. It needs you to be braver. Because sometimes the difference between connection and confusion is one honest sentence. And sometimes the difference between regret and peace is simply saying what you truly feel while you still have the chance.